is important, I think, for all restaurant owners to know is people are on your website for about 5 seconds and then they decide if they're going to leave. And so I would just say a more direct version of it is of StoryBrand for restaurants is just what kind of food do you sell? What does your atmosphere look like? And where are you located? And if that doesn't exist to me in the first little bit of your website, people may just jump off and want to go somewhere else.
You're listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, featuring real business owners telling real stories about their real business experiences. Here are your hosts, John Chiappetta and Eric Jorn.
Welcome to another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Business. Today we have Tara Lindstrom from One Bite Marketing. Welcome.
Welcome, Tara.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the business. What do you do? Sounds like you specialize in something based on the name.
I do. We specialize in restaurant marketing as well as, a few other industries, of course. But my background and what I did for 20 years prior to starting my agency was restaurants. So it's been fun to move to the other side of things, but be able to help people while, understanding what they're going through and what their needs are as I've been an owner as well.
Awesome. What did you do back in the restaurant business?
My family is a franchisee for 3 national brands. I actually grew up in the restaurant business from the time I was born. My dad worked in the restaurants. And then when I was about 11, they bought their first location. And growing up as a kid, I said I would never own restaurants after living it for my whole childhood. And then when my husband and I got married, we kind of both wanted to change careers and wanted to own a business. And my parents needed help. So we got in business with them and helped them grow and grew together to add 2 more brands and another state of locations and got up to 56 at our peak. So
full service restaurants?
Quick serve. So fast food and quick serve brands.
But still, there's a lot of moving parts.
A lot. Yes. Very a lot.
We work with a handful of franchisees that are 20, 30, 40 location. And I'm always like, how do you sleep at night? Like, there's so much there.
You don't. And if you are, then you're getting an alarm call or, something's breaking or someone didn't show up to open a store. So yeah, it's hard to scale unless you have really good people in place, which is what's been really hard over the last, 10 years or so. Being from California, that staffing problem started there a lot before the rest of the country. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, that makes sense, right? The cost of living in California versus, what's palatable for the restaurant industry it's tough. It's a hard mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of our employees shared living or were living at home or didn't have a car. That would be a big one because you can't afford a car and a house there sometimes. So, they don't, if you don't have and they don't have good buses. So yeah, it was a struggle to staff for a very long time. Yeah.
So you're working in the restaurant business, you're helping your family run these multiple locations. What made you decide to break out and start your own marketing agency?
Well, I've always handled all of our marketing and worked in marketing committees with all of our brands, sat in many franchise board meetings and in the marketing departments. So that's always been a passion. And we actually moved our family from California out to North Carolina in 2020. And so I knew that the day-to-day of what I would be able to do from there for our business was going to be reduced. So just made the right sense to, and I wanted to help other people with what I learned because I had been stuck at the mercy of the corporate marketing departments for so long. And while there are some really great people in those departments, there's also a lot of people who don't understand restaurants and have never been an operator. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I could bring a level of, help to independent restaurants, I'd help brands too. And I did do some consulting for one of our brands for about 2 years after as well and gave them good, insights on both sides. But I just really love bringing what we've learned from national brands, good and bad, to help those independent operators of 1, 2, 3, 5, locations who otherwise wouldn't have that level of marketing expertise available to them.
Yeah, I would agree. I kind of feel like the independent operator don't typically leverage the marketing as well as, a franchise obviously would, or a national brand would. I always found that they kind of relied on the referral versus, or the, what the locals were saying about the spot without trying to get a larger reach. So I think that's pretty interesting what you're doing there.
Yeah, either that, or a lot of times they have like their kid or their brother's kid, or somebody that knows social media, or that's all they do. I think that a lot of times all they know, like half of them, their websites are on Facebook, which is moving out here, because I think in California they're a little more buttoned up, but moving out here, we love it, but it's just a little more just hometown. And I'm like, where's their website? Oh no, literally their Facebook page is their website, because it's a lot easier for them to post and update, there. But yes, they only know what they know. And I think they're missing a lot of key pieces that they think it's all marketing with social media. So
yeah, nothing's more frustrating than when you're trying to find a menu online for a restaurant you want to go to, and all they have is a Facebook page, and the menu kind of looks weird. And I'm like, I can't trust this place.
Or they don't know how to take food photographs. Something that
those are the best. Just a random picture of whatever food is there.
Yeah. Well, there's a way to make it look good, and there's a way it just kind of looks, right? So, I thought that's actually really an interesting thought, because you don't really think about it. You just kind of like, yeah, that's a bad picture, but this is kind of interesting. What you're bringing to the table for the small business owner. Do you find much resistance to spending the money I don't know a lot of restaurant owners don't like to spend the money on the marketing side. Do you find that you have a little bit of a hurdle to get over with that?
What I find, and I take the same approach that I always took with our business, right? Because we had to pay a certain marketing percentage to corporate. So as a company, we weren't excited to spend a whole lot more after that. But at the same point, especially one of our brands that really doesn't do a lot of national advertising, we had to do local community stuff. So we tried to make something out of nothing all the time. So what I tell the people I work with is, pay for my expertise and my knowledge and strategy, because we know what works in restaurants. There's some proven things. But really what I'm working on here is organic marketing, because they've been sold so many things from people that are like, oh, sign up and spend, $500 a month on Facebook, or send out an ad for $5,000, or they just feel like they've just been dishing out. And really it's a game now of, and this is even things I've learned in the last few years, kind of reorienting myself in today's world, is it's like restaurants near me, it's an online game, but not just social media. So really starting there, and then getting everything kind of on their website, their SEO, every listing that they have, making sure they're showing up on maps and in local directories, and people know about them. And then you build from there. So the last thing that I would want them to do is just throw money at advertising. But if we get to that point and they have it, then great. But it's really more of like what I call kind of a marketing makeover, or let's just get you where you need to be, because I know that you probably don't have money to pay me for the next, 5 years. Or if you do, we're going to keep growing, and that's great. But there's a certain level that you need to just exist online to keep bringing those new customers in.
That makes a lot of sense. So I run our sales and marketing function for our firm, and a lot of those things are very similar, right? You got to have so much Google reviews, so you pop up on the map pack, and you might pop up decently from a ranking standpoint. You got to have your location pages. And you really got to think about what if I'm going to go and look for a restaurant, or how am I going to go seek out that restaurant, right? It's largely going to be Googling restaurants near me. How do I rank well for that? And, me personally as a user, I use the 4-letter word Yelp. Everybody hates Yelp.
It made me cringe.
But it's one way I look up restaurants, and I look for well-reviewed restaurants that have good pictures, that have a easy to read menu. And that, especially when I'm traveling and I need to find a restaurant and I need some advice around what restaurant I should go to, and I don't know anybody in the area, that's how I do it.
Yep. Yeah. And I learned a lot moving, again, you know, these things, but when you're too close to your own business,
Mhm.
you don't see things, right? So moving was great for me from a business sense because I'm able to tell people I just had to find everything new in my whole life, everywhere I go for the last 3 years. So I know how I do it and I know how other people do it. And I know what things look like online to people and what they don't. So everybody assumes, you know, if they build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. So they just put it in a center and they put a sign up and they think, all right, we're going to open the doors and there's going to be all these people there. But they don't realize it takes time and pattern changing and, you know, hearing about it and seeing it online. And then, you know, once you do start having people come, are you capturing their information? And are you then continuing to talk to them? That's the biggest one that, you know, besides bringing new people in, that's where a lot of these owners and managers kind of fail is they're not collecting data because that person is now valuable if you can get that email or that text number or, you know, however you market it. So, yeah.
How do you implement a system in which they do a better job of collecting that data?
I think it depends on what's already available to them with what they're using. You know, for instance, a lot of restaurants use Toast. Toast does have a marketing system, and it also is collecting emails either way. You obviously have to be careful that you're always collecting them legally.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's integrated with the POS, that's always the better option because you can pull other points of data out of there. But a lot of times that's pretty pricey or they're not using a system that offers it. So then we just have like a web sign up form. You can do an iPad in the store or like when they make a reservation. I do work with fine dining as well. And when they make a reservation, you know, you kind of consent to get that email. So it's just a matter of kind of collecting them over time. Maybe you have an event and everyone has to buy a ticket, you know, put their email in, that type of thing. But just having a system in place to do that. I don't care if it's like a free MailChimp that you literally just, you know, bring a pad over the table and say, you know, would you like to sign up on here or collect it on you know, have someone type it in. That's not ideal. But however it is, you know, I would say each of those emails that you can collect is probably valued at least $5 for your future business. So, you know, that's the best way to make future money.
Definitely. Are you walking into restaurants ever and they're still using the old cash register and no POS system, or is that kind of gone by the wayside at this point?
Not the ones I help, but yeah. The ones where you're like, is that money actually making it to the bank? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like a restaurant operating without a modern POS system. How do you know what people are ordering? How do you know what inventory is stock and like what things to leave on the menu take off? It's surprising.
Believe it or not, some of those old school restaurant owners did a heck of a job of knowing, but it was all up in their head. They didn't have a way to convey that information to anyone else other than what was in their head. And there wasn't the social media and the type of marketing that's available for people today. But POS systems today, I think, make a huge difference in the ability for an owner to get an idea of what they're selling and what's working, what's not working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, nothing makes me more happy when I get a check at the end of the dinner and it's a Toast and I just take my phone, Apple Pay it, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get my email address and they send me coupons for coming back.
Yep. No. Yeah, definitely having your POS system be working for you and using what's there, you know, working with it. I have a client that they have Toast and they have the marketing and then we're having a conversation and they haven't sent out an email in, you know, 3 years. So you have to use what's in front of you too and have a cadence to that, right? That's the thing I find. Most owners have an idea of what they want to do for marketing and have some actually pretty good ideas, but they just don't get the time. They're just swamped by the day-to-day, or they hired someone and they're not there anymore, or, you know, they just don't get to it. So I feel like, you know, that's my role is to push them and make sure we get marketing done, however big or little that is.
Definitely. So I'm a restaurant owner. I'm not really doing anything marketing wise. I find you and I say, hey, let's start working together. What's this process look like? Say they go on your website and they fill out a contact me form.
Yeah. So I start everybody with what I call a deep dive because I can't really help you unless I understand, you know, your current marketing and where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So typically that means working together for about a month and having a couple meetings, and then I'll go online and kind of do a full online presence audit to tell you like what you look like compared to everybody else in your area, who's coming up before you, what your reviews look like, how are people really perceiving you from the outside? Like I call websites now the new front door of the business. We always wanted the front doors to be spotless and have the perfect PO key on them and all that, but really they're not deciding by most of the time now. I mean, there are exceptions, maybe New York City, whatever, but most places, they're not deciding to come to your restaurant by walking by. They've already looked at your website, looked at your menu. Hopefully it has pricing, so there's not any surprises, and seen some pretty pictures of food. So I do a deep dive and kind of present all that together so that they have like, hey, here's where you are, and here's where I think you need to go, and here's the investment that that's going to take. And then it's really up to them to either take that and just go ahead and invest that, or we do it on their own, or we can, most of the time, they're wanting some help executing that. And I'm a certified StoryBrand guide as well. And so while StoryBrand doesn't line up fully with restaurants sometimes, because the problem really is you're hungry and you want to eat. So it's really kind of simplifies the whole idea of StoryBrand, but there are a lot of nuances within that and within general messaging that a lot of restaurants miss out on as far as what would be key pieces on your website to kind of have that beautiful front door first time experience originally from the website. So we do a lot of messaging strategy as part of that as well, make sure they have the right words that they're going to use going forward.
It's really interesting. I'm trying to figure out how StoryBrand does coincide with a restaurant, right? It very much wasn't a book and a concept crafted with a restaurant owner in mind, but I'm sure you've come up with some very creative things to do so.
Yeah, I guess the idea, I would say more along the lines of marketing made simple, which is what comes out of StoryBrand.
Yep.
The header of your website, and this is important, I think, for all restaurant owners to know, is people are on your website for about 5 seconds and then they decide if they're going to leave. And so I would just say a more direct version of it of StoryBrand for restaurants is just, what kind of food do you sell? What does your atmosphere look like? And where are you located? And if that doesn't exist, to me, in the first little bit of your website, people may just jump off and want to go somewhere else. And so having, having the call to action, right? Order now or download a coupon. And then really having some sort of, I think the words to me, the StoryBrand tie-in, which is all about the customer being the hero, is like giving them like, what am I going to experience when I'm there? Maybe you're a coffee shop, but it's like genuine connection and community, that those types of things, instead of just saying, hey, we serve coffee. So there's, as far as the marketing pieces go and just general messaging and, what do they really want? Are they looking for, a romantic tableside dinner or table, candlelit dinner? Are they looking for the best burger in town? So really, I guess, calling out your benefits and what you offer people. And that becomes what they're wanting. You have to kind of tell them that you offer that. Otherwise, you could just say, hey, we have burgers and fries. You could say the most mouth-watering gourmet burgers in Chicago, right? So,
yeah. I think that I always like
so much sense.
Yeah, but I think the cool part about what you're saying is the statistics that you talk to your client about. You've got 5 seconds. To me, that's just,
yeah.
You're thinking about that and you're like, holy cow, that's actually, there's got to be something that's capturing there, right? There's got to be something that's going to capture the person and want to look further or whatever the case might be. I don't know, 5 seconds, that's not a lot of time.
Well, I'm thinking about,
you need to give your differentiation during that time, right? So,
yeah,
if you're a pizza place, there's the gamut, right, of Little Caesars to, gourmet New York, fine dining pizza places. And you have to be able to say in those few seconds, the thinnest crust, most fresh, cheese served by your server, whatever you're going to say about it. Or, hey, we're the cheapest. If you're not going to find us cheaper in this area, or we have gluten-free or vegan, like those are important things as well. So being really clear about what you offer and not assuming a customer is going to spend 10 minutes discovering everything that you've put on your website.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, like even the what's my ideal customer profile journey makes so much sense for a restaurant. Like who is what is the ideal experience that somebody's going to come to my restaurant and have a wow moment. And then I think about how a website works for most restaurants. It's usually like, Johnny's Cafe. I've been in business since 1958, serving customers throughout the Lake County area for blah, 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 blah. We love to service our community and all this stuff. And it's all about them, right? It goes
making the customer the hero. Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if you went around websites for all the restaurants in our area, I'd probably say 9 out of 10 of them are formatted in exactly that fashion. Instead of saying, I don't know, whatever you can come up with.
The top list on the, I think it's okay to tout your menu items somewhere, but when you say we've been open since 1958, you start to now get, a little bit, does that mean the kitchen's like gross and, that type of thing. So I think that's a great place to go. Like the about section, if somebody cares that much about you, put it in the about section, put the pictures of your founders there, put the whole story of how you opened there. But, on the front page, you need to look fresh, clean, modern, relatable, or genuine to whatever you are, serving regardless of your story.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think those are huge because I think you're right. Most of the websites are, the about us is in the front side. it's what's foremost and present that you see. But yeah, that's interesting though.
I think I'm now going to approach restaurant websites with a whole different mentality. I'm going to start evaluating them and saying, usually I just go straight to the menu, but.
And that's another good point too. A lot of people don't put menus, or they put PDFs that you're like trying to like scroll through on your phone, or they don't put prices. I had a fine dining client and he came to me and was like, okay, I've been open for a year. I used to own another restaurant in this town. I know the people are here. Like, I need help. And so the first things we did, I looked at this website. It was brand new, a year old. I was like, it doesn't tell your story. Like, it literally, you just put your logo and your location. People don't know that you've restored this beautiful old mill. They don't know that you're offering gourmet steaks from Flown In Weekly. They don't know that there's this beautiful bar here. And so all we did was walk them through if you were to visit, like, here's what you'd see. And then he was hesitant about the menu. And I said, you're serving a really expensive steak in a town that's really maybe not expecting that. Like, you're going to have more disappointment if you don't tell people the price. So we went ahead and did that, and it updates consistently because he has a lot of changing menu items. But, that and some SEO, and we doubled sales within about 6 months. And then we doubled, and then we added another night open, and then we doubled again this last year. So, after 2 years, he's where he wanted to, where he thought he should be. He knows his stuff. He just didn't understand how marketing has changed. I mean, he closed his other restaurant when COVID happened, and then opened this one in 2021. And that whole course of that 1 year he was closing and opening, the whole world changed how they do business and how they find restaurants in a lot of ways. So.
Wow. So we talked about how restaurant owners maybe they're not really comfortable spending money on marketing. So obviously you have to present it to them in a way in which, you should expect X spend to generate you X or Y ROI. What do those metrics look like for a restaurant owner? What should they expect to spend on sales or on marketing for their restaurant? And what type of return do you think they should be measuring for that?
I mean, I think there's just of course, the answer to all of this is always right. There's such the gamut, but, I always tell them, 1 to 2% should be just your baseline. Like, you've got to be spending, ideally more like 5, but 2 to 5%, you should be that should just be your standard. Like, it's got all your online stuff, your website, your, checking on SEO and listings and your basic kind of stuff. And that's, typically what that first initial month of working together, might look like depending on your volume. Ongoing, franchise restaurants take 5 to 7% royalty for marketing. I think some of that gets dissolved because it's, there's a lot of overhead in that. I think a great thing to do would be, go ahead and do 10% if you can do that. And, I feel like you should be making, you should be growing your sales to that percent. I mean, more than that percentage, obviously, to make up for that money that you've spent. But if you can, there's diminishing returns. So the first 10% might get you a 25% bump in sales, but then you've got to either increase tactics, change tactics, or just pull back. If you're getting to a level that you're comfortable with, just don't stop keeping yourself kind of out there and updated. But if you're doing an ad spend or a coupon drop or something, don't keep doing those. They're going to have diminishing returns, but you've got to keep influxing those first, those new 20% of people, because about 20%, you're going to always need at least 20% new customers all the time. So you kind of have to figure out what that looks like. But honestly, between 3 brands and all my clients I've worked with, that's so across the board. There's never guaranteed results. So my favorite ones are the ones that have never done anything or haven't done anything for a long time. And case in point, we took over 10 stores in a market in Utah, and they had been taking or putting into a bucket marketing funds for 10 years, but they had never actually spent them in that market. So I took those same marketing funds and I spent them in the market. And in 1 year, we went from unprofitable to profitable to our most profitable market, because that market was just ripe for hey, we actually don't know this brand because they've only done things nationally and they've never actually spent locally. And spending locally meant figuring out what makes sense in that market. And at that time, it meant billboards when they'd never done a billboard before, and print ads in a place that's not, known across the country, but happens to be really well followed there. Mm-hmm. And even TV was affordable at that time. And this brand had never done a TV ad. Wish it was still affordable. But anyways, so I think what are those big wows in the beginning, big wins? And from that point on, I consistently would do print drops at least twice a year, because there's just, as much as I don't love printing and mailing and all that, there's a certain level of customer for certain brands that you're just not going to get unless you do a print drop. So I think it just really is specific to the business, the area, and what you can afford to do, what you can afford.
I always get interested in the marketing side too, is the analytics. After, so maybe, so they can see it in their bottom line. Maybe it's my accounting background, but I like to see hey, we put out this, maybe you had a call to action that you one of the words that I think you used was a call to action, and you can kind of see a spike in revenue, and then you can see a spike online. Mm-hmm. I always wondered, is that kind of, do you find that's important to restaurant owners, or was it just the revenue side, or is it all of it together? What are they looking at? What are the things that are important to them to show them that the marketing's working for them?
Yeah. So, what's so hard about restaurants is, after, again, doing this for so many years with different areas, states, weather, brand, shifts of weeks, all that kind of stuff, is almost never, even on a national brand scale, did you do something and see here's all the sales, right, in this bucket. But you started to learn the trends of if I do a print drop and I get 5% of them redeemed, then I know that, that brought in on my average check to say, $8, and that brought in this much amount of revenue. There might have been a snowstorm that week. And so overall, it looks like that print drop failed. And ultimately, again, working even alongside the national marketing gurus, so to say, we would it'd be well, this TV ad would have done better, except for, last year we launched this really great product at that time, and that was doing really well for us. So I think that the first steps is to, measure what that exact thing that you did, performed, and assume that, a good portion of that wouldn't have been there had you not done that, so that you can measure that directly in dollars to see, did it at least pay for itself? Because if you brought someone new in, those people are going to come back multiple times as well, right? So whatever that lifetime value is. But I think that longer term, if you're putting together a whole marketing plan, and say you are really investing, hey, this year we're going to invest 5% of our revenue in marketing, I love to watch 52-week trailing averages, because it takes kind of the seasonality out of things. And you can start to see, here's where we put marketing in. Every week you're measuring, what is my 52-week trailing average? And that's where you can actually start to see, is this actually shifting my business at all? And there's a number of other ways, right, to look at it. But those are kind of the ways that I like to follow it.
Yeah. I always say, for me, my decision making usually is, if it's bringing sales, that keeps me happy. If I can see a trend on it, it keeps me interested. Mm-hmm. So if I can start drawing trends to activities that we're doing, then all of a sudden I'm interested. I want to keep pursuing that way. Otherwise, marketing is so hard to draw attribution to directly what is causing that to happen, that, you know, if you're experiencing the results and your activities are happening, you can live with that and you're fine. But the minute you can draw attribution to something, then you get really excited and you chase that as long as you can, as long as it works.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's a trickle. You know, what I found too is you don't usually want to grow that quickly in the restaurant industry, right? Because then you overwhelm your staff. Then they get mad at you, or people get mad at them, or, you know, you run out of food or something like that. So, you know, we used to back in the day go for big wins, you know, put out a big coupon drop, staff up that first week of the month, you know, drive people in, lines out the door. But when you can't staff your stores to where you want to, you need to be trickling in new customers, you know, every day. So what that looks like is it takes a little longer to see if what you're doing is a win. But if you can look back over the course of a few months and be like, wow, you know, we used to only do X amount per day, and now our average is 100 or 200, 300 more, or X more number of people, then that you start to see it. It just takes a little bit longer.
Definitely. So when you work with a restaurant who really wasn't doing any type of marketing, and then they start, about how long is that trail before they start seeing then those results from implementing those marketing activities?
I mean, if they don't already have a buttoned up, you know, website with SEO and Google Business page and all that, I say about 3 months just from implementing messaging, fixing up the website. And, you know, that's about how long it takes kind of online. It obviously depends on how long they've been open, their current thing. And then if they aren't doing any email marketing and suddenly we start emailing, then you could see the results a lot quicker. So, but as far as like an organic online bringing in new customers, yeah, you know, 3 to 6 months.
And do you feel like it's more profitable for say a restaurant that is not retargeting their existing customer base to focus on that versus trying to bring in just all new business? Maybe people who have not came back in a while, trying to re-engage them.
Well, the thing about retargeting, if you do it in the sense of just emails you already have, like if you actually have a database, it's pretty much free.
Yeah.
So I say that's just a no-brainer. You know, that in social media is just a no-brainer, but it's free. It just maybe the cost of someone putting it together. So I do think you always need to be, if you are going to spend money, the first money I would spend would be to get new or lapsed users in, because then they become that other bucket, you know, otherwise you're still talking, you know, you're just talking to the same people. So obviously always a combination of, but a lot of people forget the lapsed, you know, if you don't have a way to track who's come in, but not for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nice to be able to segment that out. And I did that with a client the other day, and he got, I think it was like $500 in business in 1 week. And they were all, we could identify that they had not been there for at least about 6 months, you know? So I'm like, I can pretty much say that thing that cost nothing except for me figuring out who those people were, that you wouldn't have had that money, you know, in your pocket without that. So it's nice to be able to do those.
Definitely. So tell us about where your business is right now. I'm totally just changing gears. Tell us about where you're at right now and where you see your firm going in the future.
Yeah, so I'm fairly small at the moment because we were still shifting out of our restaurant business and weren't sure exactly, you know, where we were going to take that, and then had some stuff to deal with my mom. So we kind of put on hold growing for about a year. And I have a number of other client types, but I guess what I've discovered in that time is just that I have a passion for restaurants. And, you know, again, being part of the StoryBrand community of over, I think there's 700 and something of us guides, and I'm like the only one that specializes in restaurants. And so everyone goes, why do you do restaurants? They're cheap and they don't, you know, they're annoying and they just don't fall under like what everyone else wants to do for marketing. And so I'm like, I do it because I know them like the back of my hand, and it's easy-ish, you know, easier for me than say learning like I had to a pharmacy or a, you know, realty office. And I'm just, you know, I've learned quite a few industries and I love seeing the crossover and all that. But where I see myself going is developing kind of turnkey programs. I kind of have them ready to go. So hopefully by the time people hear this, they'll find them on our website. But I know that I could pitch you a huge budgeted, you know, plan And I know that you probably don't have that many if you're a restaurant, especially if you're a restaurant looking for marketing. So, I want to make it turnkey for anyone to kind of get the knowledge, and hopefully even a DIY kind of a way. I could see there being kind of cohorts or just communication. For instance, every month you've got to do some SEO, some social media, and every month there's some holidays, and, different restaurants do different promotions, and just like sharing information, keeping it positive, of course, but hopefully having some turnkey packages for people to at least get their marketing to a decent place, and then just some coaching to keep, continue that along so that they're always at least once a month thinking about their marketing, what they're going to do the next month, and making a plan.
Do you anticipate growing in size as far as like numbers, having people work under you, that type of thing? What's your mindset there?
Yeah, I have three assistants right now,
Mm-hmm.
2 overseas, and then 1 here with me locally. And they handle a lot of the day-to-day, post this, check on that, run this report, things like that. So I think as far as strategy goes, I'd like to keep it where I can continue to drive that part. But as far as the, once we know that, and once we know the message, like where to deploy it, how to put it out there, how to fix up the website, website changes and graphical needs. A lot of times we do like in-store things as well, just so in nature to me after 3 different franchise brands, is people like do social media and then they do websites, but they forget that there's like a customer journey in the store. So, trying to, what are those pieces, getting those updated. So I've run a really large business, and I hope to never have another employee.
There's nothing wrong with that at all, actually. Employees bring a whole different gamut of things to worry about. That's for sure.
But a big vision for me is that websites are such a bane of everyone's existence, and they keep changing. And sometimes people just get overcharged, or they're overpaying for this or that. And restaurants pretty much need the same thing across the board when it comes to websites, more or less. So I'm working on finding some partners to just, hey, we can do these turnkey and include any updates needed with the monthly fee, and make this, I know restaurants operate on a monthly cash flow. And so how can we get these marketing needs in a monthly format so that people can afford them, and so that they actually get the marketing done that they need.
I like that. It's when you talked about working with restaurants in that niche, so I specialize in working with automotive repair facilities. And for CPAs, that's not a very attractive industry either, right? They're usually, low, they're normally people think of them as like, they're working on cars, greasy. They don't care about numbers or anything like that. And it's really a bad misrepresentation of them. And normally they're like, oh, you mean auto dealerships, not auto repair? No, I'm auto repair facilities. And it's really a fantastic niche for us. And we also have some people that specialize in restaurants as well. But a lot of what you talked about in that niche world, I came from the automotive industry, and just working in that comfort zone where I really feel like I provided differentiated expertise in that world comparative to, working as a generalist and with every type of business. There's a huge advantage to niching.
That's what I keep hearing. So I just, they also say it's so hard to do it, but then when you do it, and then to be able to do the same things over and over, sometimes my brain is just, I wake up thinking about one, the same day I'm thinking about, a gun range, a pharmacy, and 3 restaurants, and, and my kids, and all that kind of stuff. So you only have so much brain power every day. And so what I love about working with multiple restaurants right now is I can take not only what I know worked from our restaurants, but I can also take what's working from my, the restaurants I have at this point. They're not competitors. I don't think I'd ever take, true competitors. There's plenty of restaurants out there, and apply it, and they're not. And then we're all getting more benefit out of that. Like I have 2 clients that do a red envelope promotion in December, where you give out an envelope and then you have to bring it back in January. And the funny part is, one is a pizza restaurant, a kosher pizza restaurant, and the other one is that fine dining restaurant that serves, $80 steaks. And they do it totally differently, right? But the premise of it, and neither of them had really heard about it before I brought it to them, and they love it, and it helps drive their January sales. And so you just, you can take those learnings and help grow quicker than if you're in 8 different industries trying to learn all the niches and the nuances.
For sure.
I like that marketing strategy, the red envelope one. We actually had somebody on the podcast a few months back. They have a series of barbecue restaurants, and they have that same exact strategy. And I see them posting on Facebook all the time now about, okay, somebody else just got one of the prizes. Somebody else got one of the prizes. Fun.
Well, what's funny is they're now finding both restaurants separately without talking to each other or me decided that they wanted to do it again for July, because I guess that is the next lowest month based on where they are and vacations and things like that. It feels like the next slump for them. And so they're going to, in a little different format, not exactly the same, but they're going to kind of try that, like, can we give this out like during Mother's Day, Father's Day, grad time, and then get people back, in July. So
definitely. Anything that you would say to restaurant owners that they should have in, top of mind 2024 for marketing?
I would say it's just a good idea to always take a step back and look at your business and not be restaurant blind. And so even if that means bringing someone else in or getting some, true opinions from someone outside your favorite circle. But I think that just having fresh eyes on what might need to be updated, especially in stores. I go in so many restaurants now and I'm like, please take the COVID signs off the window, or like, please fix the booth that's like falling apart or whatever. And I know that money's tight. I know it's tight, but there's also just a mental shift that people have when they walk in somewhere and it looks dated or it looks old or whatever. So kind of just some things are cheap, easy, whatever. Clean up the counter, take the tape off things, like make the experience inside look good, and then make that experience outside match. So take a fresh look at your website. Websites are so inexpensive now. You can probably even figure out how to do it yourself if you need to, but make sure that the pictures look pretty. Make sure that if you Google something near you, kind of become a new customer yourself and take yourself through it, and then kind of evaluate. Make sure you're putting it on your calendar to just say, hey, let me look at my marketing. Let me look at, what am I doing? And then secondarily, I would say make a budget. It's really hard to spend money that you're already considering as profit. So if you can start to take a certain percentage, I don't care if it's 1%, and put it in a separate fund. And then when you get up to a few $1,000s, that's all it really takes to get started with some decent restaurant marketing, get to a few $1,000s, do something with it, something that you can measure, and don't do nothing, because most restaurants don't have that luxury of just, we all wish we were In-N-Out. Although I even saw an In-N-Out ad recently, but for years, we all wish we were In-N-Out. And even Chick-fil-A, take the nod from Chick-fil-A, right? They are crazy busy, doing crazy well. They're still heavy hitting on the marketing because they know they're just building it for the future. So, you're just laying that foundation by focusing on always bringing the customers in. You won't have to feel that slump when things go further south.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, especially the mention of Chick-fil-A, because they are somebody that tackles marketing in every way possible too, right? There's billboards, there's signs, there's even in front of the restaurants, they have a lot more attention seeker or getters than a lot of other restaurants. And then they have, they do the app, they do everything. That's interesting. I didn't really think about how heavy in marketing they are.
Mm-hmm.
They have a ton.
And then depending on the type of restaurant, you also have to really look at your off-premise, that's a whole nother conversation. But, there's opportunities for most restaurants with something outside of your core business of people who just walk in your door. So whether that's online ordering, third-party delivery, catering, whatever it is, there's opportunities. That's probably where the biggest growth is. If you're already actually pretty busy and running a good store, it's either going to be additional items, additional check items, or it's going to be something outside of the store. So it's always good to evaluate your opportunities there and see how things have changed, because in our stores, we started with DoorDash in our franchise stores, one of the brands, and we almost got rid of it at one point, before COVID and all that. It was like, it's like 7 to 10%. It's just all this work. We're paying all these fees. And I actually haven't seen those numbers for a while because I'm not day to day anymore. I saw them the other day, and most stores were about 30% third party delivery now. Wow. And so, had we chosen to not embrace that And I don't believe, based on what I've seen, that those would all be in-store customers if they weren't. It's a whole other customer. So I think just making sure for where you are, your area, your type of business, that you're embracing anything that goes out the door, because those could potentially become in-store customers in the future as well.
It's a really good point. Well, thank you so much for your time on the podcast today. I think you brought a lot of value to all restaurant owners. Anybody that can listen, definitely take a listen. Just pull out some of the nuggets. I mean, some of the stuff is things like you said, right? You can listen to this and just implement it yourself, right? Just go pretend to be your own customer and see if you can find yourself, and how appealing is your restaurant really. Take off those blinders. If they want to learn more about One Bite Marketing and what you do, where can they find you online?
OneBiteMarketing.com. ONEBITE. Marketing.
Perfect. We'll make sure to include links to that and any socials in our show notes for the podcast today. Anything else you wanted to part with?
No, it's been great talking to you guys, and look forward to hopefully connecting again in the future. We can keep going some of these topics.
That sounds great. Maybe next time we'll pull in a restaurant owner and have a multi-person banter. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, my client that's a kosher pizza guy, he's a good one. He's fun.
Appreciate the time very
Sounds
much.
perfect.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thanks, listeners. Take care. You have been listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. You can hear more real stories from real business owners about what it takes to make it in business by subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you like what you hear, leave a review and a 5-star rating. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs and Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com.